All right, welcome to the North Central IPM Center's Pest and Progress webinar series. And today our webinar is titled Illinois IPM Program Highlights and Future Directions. And our speaker will be Diane Plewa. I am Lene Jess. I'm one of the co-directors of the North Central IPM Center. And we're one of 4 regional IPM centers supported by USDA NIFA, the Crop Protection and Pest Management Regional Coordination Program. We have a mission to coordinate IPM across the region. And we are conducting this series to provide opportunities for project directors to report on their crop protection and pest management grants programs. If you have questions, we'd like you to put them in the Q&A that's located on the bottom of your Zoom control panel, and then we will answer all those questions at the end of Diane's talk. So today we do have Diane Plewa. She's at the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, and her title is Plant Clinic Director and State IPM Coordinator. Diane has provided me with some links to some websites and some of her social media. And so I will be putting those in the chat box as she talks. And again, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom control panel. I'd like to welcome you, Diane, and thank you for doing this. You can take it away.
All right, thank you, Lene, and thank you to everyone who's joining us. So today I'm going to give a brief overview of the Illinois IPM program, including some projects that were started a few years ago under previous grants, and then also continuing with programs that are still ongoing and some that have evolved into new projects. So a little bit about the Illinois IPM program in terms of our background. We are a program that has been in transition. We've had a couple of different program directors over the past couple of years. So I consider myself still kind of a newbie. But we've been able to continue funding, I think, some very important programs, and we're really excited that we're beginning to expand into new projects and new areas. So in the past, we've traditionally been able to support the wide area pest monitoring and reporting, and then also the support for plant diagnostic facilities. And that's been in cooperation with CAPS, the Cooperative Agricultural Pest Survey, and then with the Plant Clinic. So those are programs that we've supported for quite a while, and we are continuing to do so. And then we also have a couple of new projects that were started just a couple of years ago, Pollinator Health, and then Agronomic Crops we actually just picked up in the last year. And we are starting specialty crop and Pesticide Applicator Education projects with this new grant. So again, we're very excited that we're being able to kind of expand into, I think, some new and hopefully important programs. So starting a few years ago, one of our projects was focused on pollinator health, and it funded a graduate student. And her project was comparing the abundance and the population composition of pollinator bees in nature preserves compared to CP42 fields in East Central Illinois. And so CP42 fields are part of a USDA program. These fields have been set aside out of production agriculture into pollinator protection. There are a lot of fairly strict management requirements for those fields to be considered compliant in the program. But the whole purpose is to help protect pollinator populations and to encourage those populations to either rebound if they've been decreasing, or at least to maintain. And so this project looked at comparing these CP42 fields, which are essentially like artificial pollinator habitat, to nature preserves that have been obviously much more intensively managed to be kind of a more natural or a more native ecosystem. And so this graduate student collected over 12,000 bees from 23 different locations over 2 years, and those bees were all identified to species. We had 117 species total that were found across these 23 different locations. And so what she found, and I think this is really exciting, when you look at the breakdown, or when you look at the species the population composition by family, they're very, very similar. So with the nature preserves, you can see the pie chart on the left. You can see the family composition of the different types of bees that she collected in those preserves. And then on the right are the CP42 fields. And as you can see, they're very, very similar. She is currently running some stats, but basically what they found is that there is no significant difference in family composition between the two different land treatments. And currently there is insufficient evidence for significant difference in species composition, and also insufficient evidence for significant difference in abundance. So basically the takeaway from this is that it appears that CP42 fields support similar abundance and composition for bee pollinator populations when they're compared to nature preserves. And again, I think this is really exciting and really good news, because, you know, if we have a program that is purported to do something, you want to make sure that it's actually achieving those goals. And in this case, the CP42 fields do appear to be, they are achieving the goal of pollinator protection, at least in terms of pollinator bees. So this has been, again, just a really fun project to be somewhat involved with. And I've been really, it's been exciting to see, like, as the project has gone on, and I think that the results have been very encouraging. So in terms of the outputs from that program, we had reports to the individual landowners. Those reports included the types of pollinator plants that were present on the land, along with the species of bees that were found. And it included more information about, like, the feeding habits of those bees, the nesting habits. So it was kind of trying to give the landowners a good understanding of their bee pollinator population in that area. There was also a youth pollinator program. We had extension horticulture team presentations, and then there is a statewide pollinator website that is currently in progress. It's being done in conjunction with University of Illinois Extension. Pollinators have been identified as one of our primary priority areas for extension, and so that website is being developed in cooperation with this grant, and then the information from this project will also be presented on that website. And then she has completed her thesis and she graduated, and there is a paper in progress. So again, I think this is just really encouraging news. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention that I thought was really, really good is that the landowners, the CP42 landowners, I asked her if, you know, she had evaluated them in terms of their interest in pollinator protection. And she said that she had, and that those landowners ran the gamut from passionately dedicated to pollinator protection down to basically they had some land that was not particularly productive and they would rather get the subsidies for putting it into CP42. And so I think that that's actually, again, really powerful, because it shows that this program itself, the CP42 program itself, the requirements that it currently has have been effective, and you don't have to be super enthusiastic, or you don't have to do a lot of your own research in order to make it successful. So I'm glad that that was a data point that she looked at. And again, I think that that makes this program even more robust. So our second primary priority, and this is one that we actually just picked up about a year ago, is agronomic crops. So Illinois, we have a lot of corn and soybeans and some wheat and a couple of other agronomic row crops as well. The original plan was to hold in-person field days and crop scouting field days. COVID kind of put a halt to all that. And so we were able to partner with the Crop Protection Network and be part of the virtual Crop Scout School that they produced earlier this year. We had two presenters from Illinois. One presented on corn insect identification, and the other was presenting on field disease, like scouting in agronomic row crops. So that's a partnership that I think worked really well. We had good feedback on that, and we are planning to continue working with CPN as long as they want to keep providing this virtual crop scouting school. I hope that's something that we can definitely be part of in Illinois. We are planning to go back to in-person field days as well, starting in 2022 as part of this program. The next project that's going to be funded is focused on corn rootworm. So looking at how to monitor for this pest, how to assess damage in the field, also looking at species distribution, so northern corn rootworm versus western corn rootworm in Illinois, and also mapping BT resistance in that pest. So it's going to be really focused on corn rootworm. We're working with a couple of different professors. And we're also planning a couple of videos for crop consultants and agronomic producers and farmers looking at key pest identification, how to monitor for those pests, and how to and damage thresholds essentially. So those are videos that are being planned and that will go out to help, again, agronomic producers scout their own fields. We also had a statewide high school crop scouting competition for the first time in at least most people's memory that we were able to ask. So I don't want to say it was the first time this type of competition has been held in Illinois, because I don't know that for sure, but it's definitely the first time it's been held in quite a while. So that is something that we worked with Extension. Extension really spearheaded that, and it was done in cooperation with industry and commodity groups. We also had cooperation from FFA and 4-H. So it was truly like a cooperative effort, which was wonderful. We had 2 teams that competed. We had 12 presenters, and one of our teams went to regionals. So we were really excited to start that program. Again, we had really good feedback from the students that participated, and we are looking forward to being able to continue that program. And the goal, of course, is to expand it. There's also the goal of working with other states to come up with a region-wide question bank for use across the Midwest in other or in similar crop scouting competitions. So again, that was kind of something that popped up, but we were really happy we were able to be part of that, because again, I think that's just an exciting little program that hopefully we can expand on. And then also as part of the agronomic crops portion of the grant, we are offering free soil nematode and row crop diagnoses for Illinois producers. We are offering up to 2 soil samples and 2 agronomic crop samples to be submitted. Those are going to be processed through the plant clinic, and then the results will be reported back to the client. And then at the end of the year, the results will be aggregated and communicated to the professors and the specialists working on this project. And then these are the outputs. This is just from this last year. There's an annual applied research results for field crop diseases and insect management report that goes out every year. That's a bit of a mouthful. But among other things, the results from some of the scouting and some of the surveys that are done as part of this grant are included in that document. We also produced a spotted lanternfly fact sheet. This has become kind of the hot new insect pest for the Midwest. And so we were able to produce that, and it's available both online, and then also hard copies have been produced and are available in extension offices and at conferences and things like that. The Agronomy Handbook, there's an update. It is currently in progress. Individual chapters, as they are updated, are available online. And then once all the chapters have been completed, the entire document will be available. I think that they're still deciding if it's going to be available as like a printed book, or if it will all just be a free online download. And then again, I mentioned we have those insect ID and monitoring videos. Those are still in progress. There are multiple videos planned per year, and there will be some shorter videos, and then there will be one kind of larger video that goes a little bit more into detail into like key pests, including life stages or life cycles, management, things like that. So as I mentioned earlier, the Wide Area Pest Monitoring and Reporting is a program that we have been partially supporting for quite a while through the IPM grant, and we are continuing to do that. This last year, we had 6 pest species which were monitored in spring and summer, and these are pest species of agronomic crops. And then later in the year, in fall, more than 40 counties were surveyed for corn and soybean pests, and this is done in cooperation with, as I mentioned, CAPS, and a couple of other groups. But one thing that's been really impressive, I think, is that the monitoring that occurs in spring and summer, it occurs with a formal network of cooperators. And so these cooperators are made up of extension and university personnel, industry personnel, agricultural producers, and all of these people are trained in how to monitor and identify specific pests. The monitoring is done through trapping and sample collection and field monitoring. And then that data is submitted to both of these reporting systems, so Ag Pest Monitor and then also EdMaps. And so then that allows for producers to have kind of a real-time understanding of what pest species are showing up in Illinois, where they're showing up, how frequently, things like that. And so it's really streamlined our reporting process. So it's not having to go to a specialist and the specialist has to identify it and then they have to publish something. This has been I think that this transition has been very popular. When I've talked with some of the surveyors they said that they have found value in having, again, that kind of real-time feedback. So that's been a really successful program, and I'm happy that that was something that we could be part of. And in terms of the outputs for this program, again, this is just in the last year. We again had that annual applied research results. The results from the surveys and from the monitoring are published in that. Updates and blogs are published on Crop Central. Crop Central is a new University of Illinois Extension website. It is kind of an aggregate of all of the agricultural websites and blogs and newsletters. There used to be several individual websites that you could visit to get all the information, and now they are kind of pulling it all together and making it available all in one place. And so again, that's been I think very successful, and that's been a great platform for us to publish the results from some of the IPM program projects. And then the statewide pest survey data is actually one of the most requested and used data sets from Illinois by our professors and researchers and specialists. People use it to inform grant decisions. They use it to start planning new projects, and it's also used by industry in terms of looking at what new pests may be showing up, and also looking at if management is being effective, if it's working. So I think that data set is definitely valuable, and I think a lot of people see again the value in that, and that's something that we're able to help support. And then our other secondary priority is the support for plant diagnostic facilities. In Illinois, that's the Illinois Plant Clinic. This is looking at over the past 5 years, just because I had to do a 5-year report and I thought it was fairly impressive. But we have processed over 18,500 samples in the past 5 years. And those are plant, insect, and soil samples. We perform nematode identification and enumeration. We also do disease, insect, and plant identification. And all of our diagnostic reports include, what was identified on the sample, but also IPM recommendations, so management recommendations. Because as I remind people, most people don't care what the problem is, they just want to know how to fix it. And so we include management recommendations that contain both chemical and then also like cultural or biological management recommendations. And we received samples from all counties in Illinois. We have 102 counties in the state, plus 25 other states in again, that 5-year period. And so I thought that was, again, fairly impressive. And I think it's great that the IPM program is part of that. We also we have developed laboratory workshops for undergraduate and graduate level classes. So there are a number of classes that they have incorporated some of the, like a tour and some hands-on training that was developed by plant clinic personnel as part of their curriculum. And so every year we have a couple of different classes that come through, and again, they get to do hands-on training, and we try to kind of walk them all the way through the diagnostic process, and that's considered part of their class. And in terms of our outputs for this secondary priority, again, all of our diagnostic samples are reported in terms of the identification, but also IPM recommendations. So that's thousands of contacts. We have numerous extension and professional presentations. Plant clinic personnel have presented at Illinois Arborist Association, the Gateway Green Professional Conference, at the Central Plant Board presentations, at a number of different professional presentations. We also work with extension, and so we've held a number of presentations. We do 6-hour all day Master Gardener trainings. We've presented at the Master Gardener State Conference, and a number of other local presentations with local groups, some extension and some other. The Illinois Field Crop Scouting Manual finally was updated. We're very excited about that. So that's now available, and it needed to be updated, and now it is. So that was great. That could get done. Plant clinic personnel have been involved with a number of peer-reviewed publications. I think in the last 5 years, it was around 9, I believe, published publications. Those mostly involve identification of new pathogens or pests in Illinois. And then the plant clinic also finally has a new website, and that's, again, something that's been in the works for a while. So we are very happy that finally was done. And now we get to work on the IPM website, but one step at a time. And I mentioned also that we were expanding, and so these are our new projects under the this most recent grant. And so we added 2 priorities. One was a specialty crops priority. We are going to be surveying hemp production in Illinois over a couple of years, and working with cooperators both within extension and also agronomic growers, and trying to do surveys and also having them submit samples as they see problems arising in their fields. And the idea is to be able to get a better idea of what is a pest or a disease problem on hemp in Illinois. Since it's a fairly new crop, we still don't have a great understanding of some of the constraints that might be out there in terms of production. And then also to develop high quality pictures of these problems so that we can produce a handbook of common hemp problems that would be used by growers like in the field, for example. And that handbook, it may be published, or it may be like an online app or something along those lines. But the idea would be to have this bank of high quality pictures that producers would then be able to help them identify problems in their fields. And then the other priority that we picked up is the Pesticide Applicator Education priority. We have pest management handbooks, and again, they're fairly out of date. And so we would like to update both of those. Our plans are to update the commercial applicator handbook first, since it's the older one, and then we will be updating the kind of homeowner pest management guide after that. And so with that, I just want to thank the North Central IPM Center for hosting this presentation. Also, obviously, Illinois Extension and USDA NIFA for their support and funding, and the University of Illinois Department of Crop Sciences. And if you have any questions, I am happy to take them at this time.
All right, thank you, Diane. Great presentation. One of the questions is, because of COVID, it seems like all the programs have had to shift the way they did things.
Yes.
So do you see any ways that, if any, that you're going to maybe keep things that you had to do during COVID that you thought worked better, or do you think you'll kind of just go back to the way things were because that worked best for your growers and people?
Mm-hmm. So I think that it's kind of a wishy-washy answer. I'd like to do both, but obviously that depends on time and kind of technology. I think that there is a lot of value in hands-on, face-to-face, in-person presentations, field days, crop scouting, that sort of thing. I know that we tend to get better engagement with people when we're able to see them face to face, and we're able to actually have samples for them to look at, or have insects for them to identify. So we definitely want to go back to that as possible. However, I do think that being forced to do like a virtual crop scout with the Crop Protection Network, that was great, and that allowed a lot of people that might not otherwise have been able to travel to a specific field day to have access to that information. So I think that the goal would be to continue doing as much virtual or distance presentations as we can. Also doing things like the videos that can be downloaded and viewed whenever is convenient and as many times as needed for the growers. But at the same time, we are very eager to get back to in-person when possible, just so that we can have that personal connection and be able to answer questions face to face. It does make a difference, I think.
Yep, sounds great. What are some of the biggest challenges that you have for the Illinois IPM program?
So as I mentioned on the first slide, it's been a program in transition for a little while. And as I mentioned, I still consider myself fairly new. It's a really exciting program. And I think the biggest challenge for me is that there are so many really cool things we could do, but we have limited resources, limited time, limited personnel. And so trying to find those programs that are going to have the biggest impact, that are maybe unique to Illinois. Frankly, across the Midwest, we have a lot of great collaborators, and working with extension programs in other states has always been, frankly, a joy. And working with other cooperators has been really easy. And so, I mean, we have a lot of very good information that kind of spans across the Corn Belt or the soybean belt. And so, picking up programs that either are going to be uniquely valuable for Illinois producers, or that we have the ability to do that maybe other states don't, are our priorities when we can. Yeah, and part of it is also, as I mentioned, there are limitations in terms of resources, but also in terms of staff. There's been a decent amount of turnover, and so there are programs that would be really fun to be part of, but if we don't have a PI, if we don't have a professor or a specialist in that specialty, you know, it doesn't really work. So finding, again, like the things that are going to work the best both for Illinois producers, but also that bring value to the whole region are kind of the things that we look for.
Okay, great. And then what do you think are the biggest impacts for the Illinois IPM program?
So as I mentioned before, I'm really excited by the pollinator health program that we had in terms of the looking at the CP42 land versus the nature preserves, and then that program is continuing with the statewide pollinator website and updates to that website, and continuing some of that work. So I think that, again, I think it's really valuable in terms of pollinators are a hot topic, and protecting pollinators is definitely something that people are concerned about, but making sure that what we're doing is actually effective is, I think it's always good to have that data set that says, yes, it is actually effective. And so I'm really excited to kind of see where that goes in terms of what other projects we could maybe partially support, or other projects, you know, maybe someone would be interested in doing something similar in a different state, because again, our data set is from East Central Illinois, or looking at non-bee pollinators, looking at other pollinators. So I think that just kind of has a springboard for a lot of other work that could be done. I think also the data set that's produced by the surveys, the wide area monitoring that we do along with CAPS, I think that that's really valuable. I'm more involved with the plant clinic, and all of our data is also kind of published through the Crop Central and given to professors and specialists, but it's a data set that is just what people send in to us, and so we could be missing something if no one provides a sample to us. So having the plant clinic data with the actual survey data, I think makes that more valuable, because that way we have a better idea of what's going on across the state and not just what people are really worried about.
Great, thank you for that. We're reaching the end of our time, so again, thank you very much for doing your presentation today. I really appreciated it, and it was very exciting to hear what's been going on in Illinois. So our next webinar will be Wednesday, December 15th, and we'll be talking with the University of Wisconsin EIP program on what their IPM projects have been. If you would like to know more about what the North Central IPM Center is all about, you can go to our website at ncipmc.org, and you can also view previous pest and progress webinars on the website there. So again, thank you everybody for attending, and I hope everybody has a great day.